Hi, welcome back to the channel. Michelle, and today I'm going to be doing end of the year homeschool reviews. So I'm going to start with my first grader. Next video will be my fourth grader, and then I will do a family subjects video. So this video is dedicated to how curriculum-wise the year went for my 6-year-old. So she kind of began the year ending kindergarten and going into first grade because she has a fall birthday. She kind of tends to straddle multiple levels and tends to move to the next level around January. So she spent a chunk of this year finishing up kindergarten, going into first grade. Same with next year, she'll do a small chunk finishing first grade, going into second grade. But we've officially finished all of our school curriculum and are moving into summer schedule. So I figured it'd be a great time to actually share how things went. So for handwriting, we used Core Knowledge Skills. Now, Core Knowledge is completely free online. I'll link them down below. It's done by age or by grade level, which I do like because it's at an age-appropriate level. So what I do for handwriting is there's 2 sections for Core Knowledge with the lower grades. It's a listening and learning strand and a skills section. So the skills section is like handwriting, grammar, phonics, things like that. So what I use the skills section for is mainly just handwriting. Now we do incorporate Core Knowledge, Language Arts, grade 1, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we only incorporate the listening and learning component of that. So a lot of this is just kind of, what is CAMS, which one is it? And she would write the words, and that's going really well, as you can see here. She's done really well with handwriting. I do keep a handwriting without tears little paper right next to her just so if she forgets the letter placement, and it does have just basic handwriting exercises like this, but that's worked great. We, I think, are on the last skill booklet of kindergarten, and the question might be, well, if she's first grade, why is she doing kindergarten? Because again, I'm only using this for handwriting practice, not for any of the phonics or grammar or anything like that. So I went with a younger kindergarten level, and that's just for her to practice handwriting. That's going well, handwriting's good. So next would be math. So she finished Dimensions KB. We went straight into Dimensions 1A, and it's going well. The only issue I've seen is that Dimensions does step it up work-wise. So it went from 1 pages to more like 3 pages they're doing now. So she is 3/4 of the way done of 1A. So as you can see here, there's a lot of problems on a page. So what I've been doing is just having her, like we'll do the textbook together and then I'll just pick some of the problems for her to do out. But you can see that's a lot of problems for a 6.5-year-old to be doing, in my opinion. And again, she's fully capable of it. She gets math concepts pretty quickly. She doesn't like a lot of fluff. She wants the work. She wants to get it done. And I've debated, switching to or trying other programs just because she doesn't need the repetition that Dimensions provides. I do love the way Dimensions teaches. I love that it teaches from multiple angles. It really teaches conceptual math, but it's a lot of review, which works great for my oldest, but my 6-year-old doesn't need that review because again, math is her thing. She's got it down. So I did test out some samples of Math Mammoth with her to see if that, because I've heard that's more of a streamlined Dimensions. And I tried that, but again, she got the concepts quickly. She didn't need the review, so I was like, maybe. Right now, I'm also at the point where I have all of 2 in 3A teacher guides, so all I'd have to buy is the workbook and textbook for her for future grades. So part of me is like, I already have these resources. I should just continue using them. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just more practice than she needs. So I've toyed with that idea. I've toyed with bringing in Beast Academy as a supplement because again, she seems to get the math concepts pretty quickly. But again, that would just be, it seems like more work for her and not necessarily benefiting her, just work. So I'm kind of at this impasse where Dimensions is great, love it, but it's just a lot of repeat that she doesn't need. So I'm just going through and picking the problems she that I think she should work through, and so she can demonstrate to me that she knows what she's doing. We also do the test booklet with this, and I gotta say, most of the time she gets near 100%, so I know she's getting the concepts. She just wants to move at a quicker pace, which is crazy because I don't think anything moves at a quicker pace than Dimensions. I would say this is probably 6 months ahead of most math curriculums. When I was looking at Saxon and Math Mammoth, comparing the table of contents and stuff, this is like, to move to one of those problems, I'd have to bump her up a level. So we're gonna continue with this, and challenging wise, has she been challenged with this? There are some aspects of it I would say are challenging her, but again, she's gets the concepts quickly, but she's also, I'm mindful that she's 6.5, and maybe the stamina to do that many problems isn't always there. So one thing we did do in the last 2 weeks of before we break for summer is I've started doing this Kate Snow addition facts that stick. Because one, I want to slow her down. She's 6.5, she doesn't have to fly through it. And two, she's getting double-digit addition, and I want to make sure she's got her math facts down. Funny thing is, so we started going through this, and the first 3 weeks are adding 1 and 2, pairs that make 10, and sums less than 10. She flew through those. Like, we just skipped them entirely after doing the first week. Or the first day of the first week, she just, bam, she knew it, because she prefers to do a lot of mental math, and this program does help with visualizing a 10 frames, and that's how you do addition facts and things like that. So she flew through it, and even with adding to 9, she's going really quick. She can, I'll show you, these are some of the practice pages you do every day. She flies through these. And again, using mental math, she doesn't like counters, she doesn't like manipulatives, anything like that. If she does get stuck, I'll try to redirect her to the 10 frame to kind of visualize it, but she's got it, she's got it. So I have a feeling we're gonna finish this very quickly. It's not going to be a 6-week program at all. It's gonna be like a 3-week program. And then we'll go back to Dimensions, and I'm waiting for when, I guess, her developmental age and stamina match up with her math ability. And it's just so weird because my oldest, this is the area she struggled in, so this is new territory for me, dealing with a child that is excelling in an area that I've often had to troubleshoot, and part of me is like, just leave it alone, it's perfect, and another part's me like, well, does she need that repetition? So if you have any suggestions on that, let me know. I know I've talked about this in a previous video. So we're troubleshooting a couple areas, but ultimately Dimensions is doing a really good job with that. It's just a lot of practice. So for reading, she finished All About Reading Level 1. She is halfway through All About Reading Level 2. I don't know if maybe something clicked, because we all know that moment when reading clicks, right? They start flying through it. So I feel like All About Reading Level 1 took us a long time, like 1.5 years. And this, she's just flying through. She's doing really well with it. She's enjoying all the activities and the little games that come with it. So again, I've really been impressed with the All About Reading program. It's worked for both my girls, and they're very different learners. So one thing I did incorporate was some trophies and journeys readers. And again, I have a flip through, I'll link up above if you want to see more specifically, but in All About Reading, it tells you to read, but I also wanted her to have more reading practice because she's gone through a lot of our readers. Again, I have early reader video as well. She's gone through a lot of them. And one thing I talked about in that video is I like that this is such a large print because she is a wiggly child and she likes to move while she reads, and she often loses her place in smaller books. So she really actually enjoys the print, and I do like that this incorporates grammar as well as story elements and things like that, reading comprehension. But she's made it through the first book of both these, both trophies and journeys. She went through the entire book of both of them, and it was fun. We did the little activities at the end. We would usually do this, instead of doing All About Reading lesson on Friday, we would just do the lesson out of this, and we would do it all. We'd read the story together, we'd do the grammar lesson, we'd do the activity, and that is where she's at with that. We will continue those into her first, second grade year next year, because I think they worked really well. The only other thing we did was for language arts, we did core knowledge grade 1, and that actually went really well for my 6-year-old. Now we covered a variety of topics. We covered fables, human body, different lands, similar stories. I'll scroll through these on the side so you can see early world civilizations, early American civilizations, astronomy, history of the earth, so like geology, animals and habitats, fairy tales, new nation, American independence, and frontier explorers. So you can see we covered a variety of topics. And what I love about core knowledge is it's so rich in contextual knowledge. So I don't feel like I have to have a separate science curriculum or history curriculum for my daughter, because again, there's about there's 4 years between my oldest and middle child. So we do a lot of like our group subjects like science and history are geared towards my older one. And I feel like core knowledge is covering the basics of those areas through our literature that we're doing. And I love that core knowledge is just, everything is, well, free, obviously, but everything's there for you. They do give you trade books to, expand your learning, like a list of that, but you don't need to purchase everything separate. You don't need spines to do this program, which I love that it's enough just as it is. So as you can see, we covered many subjects in this past year, and it fit perfectly from starting in August to ending in the middle of May. We covered it all. And again, the listening and learning strand is more vocabulary, background knowledge, reading comprehension, but also I would say it implies critical thinking questions, not just reading comprehension questions as well. So we got exposure to vocab, which was really nice, and learning new words. And it's funny to hear my 6-year-old use the word expedition now when she talks. But I think the background knowledge was really good, story elements, all that. Now I have heard, what are your thoughts on history when it comes to core knowledge? Because often early U.S. history, things like that can be very whitewashed or hero worshiping and things like that. And here's my thoughts on this. Now I only have experience with this for the younger grades. I have not delved into the older grades. So I can only speak to the, kindergarten, first grade levels of this, but I would say they handled it pretty well. There's definitely some, like when we're talking about George Washington, he's definitely painted as a good guy, I would say, but I wouldn't say necessarily hero worship, but he's painted as a good guy. Same with some other presidents that are discussed in there. It's not so much going into who they were as a person so much as sticking to factual things. So for example, when we talked about Columbus, we didn't go into the atrocities that Columbus committed, just the basics of Columbus factually wise. I think it will dive more into that as we get into older grades, but I will say one thing I was really impressed in. So when I think we were going over New Nation, American Independence, they were talking about the Declaration of Independence, the preamble, all of that. And one of the things core knowledge made a point to point out is, it says freedom and justice for everyone. And one of the series of questions was, well, was this true for Native Americans? Was this true for African Americans? Was this true for women? And it brings up it's planting those seeds that this is what is written, but is every perspective given? So it's starting those conversations in a first grade level, which I think is amazing. I think that's really important for core knowledge to start bringing up at such a young age. I know some people are like, oh no, little kids can't hear about horrible things. No, horrible things happen, and there's age-appropriate ways to introduce it to children. I think bubbling them isn't beneficial to them at all. And same thing, we ended with frontier explorers. So we talked about Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea. And again, it was talking about a lot of Sacagawea's perspective on it, and I really appreciate that. One thing that they did mention is obviously, this. So when the president bought the Louisiana Purchase and purchased that part of the country, it was brought up, obviously, was that theirs to give away? Was that were there already inhabitants on that land? So talking about, the relocation of Native Americans, about how they were here first, acknowledging that, because let's face it, not a lot of even history curriculums will acknowledge that. So I think they do, there is some, painting a positive picture of an historical figure, but it's also bringing in different perspectives and planting those seeds of, okay, but is this the whole story? And for example, with the Lewis and Clark expedition, they didn't mention it at all. One of them owned a slave that was instrumental in this journey, the 2-year expedition that they had, York. And it's funny because it matched up really well with our group subject. We do Curiosity Chronicles, and we were talking about that around the same time. So my daughter was able to pick up that, this person wasn't mentioned in this history curriculum. But again, I think in history, you got to bring in multiple resources and perspectives, because not one resource will give it to you all. So she's able to make those connections. But the thing Core Knowledge is doing is giving her that contextual knowledge to be able to make those connections that, oh, I remember reading about this, and this is adding a layer to it. So it's, building upon it every single time she hears it, which is the whole point of Core Knowledge. So that's kind of my thoughts on, how they handled the history aspect of it at a young age. I think they are planting the seeds of different perspectives, and they're acknowledging, the people that came before, the people affected, the people not being talked about. So that is grade 1. And I've had the question before why I don't have my 6-year-old doing Lightning Lit. Again, my oldest and youngest daughter are very different. My 10-year-old excels with Lightning Literature, so I feel no need to change that. I've never tried Core Knowledge in the older grades. That's something I will be incorporating next year. So with my 6-year-old, we will continue using Core Knowledge. I don't feel the need to switch her to Lightning Literature. I think Core Knowledge is doing a really good job right now, kind of just at first, second grade level. She just needs exposure to information, not, memorize timelines or historical figures or anything like that. She just needs exposure to stories and perspectives, and that's what Core Knowledge is doing. It's laying a solid foundation for her to build upon, and it's sprinkling in all those little areas. Like I said, I don't have to go back and do a separate history or a separate science or any of these other areas, separate art. Art is actually incorporated in there as well. It's all interweaved. And yes, do I bring in other areas in our group subjects like history? Of course, because I don't want just one sole thing. Same thing when we do science, Core Knowledge Science isn't her only exposure to science. We do other science things as well. But overall, I think it's been great, and I'm surprised more people don't utilize Core Knowledge, because I have found it to be a wonderful resource. So things that we didn't get to, and I talked about this in my Mrs. video, that I really wanted to incorporate foreign language or world languages, but we just didn't have the space available for me to schedule out this year. So luckily it's something we're doing this summer. I'll link up above our summer, schedule and plans and things like that. But we will be incorporating Song School Spanish back in for the summer just for her, because of course my 10-year-old wants to do something different. So we will incorporate that aspect as far as things she's done outside, like extracurricular. She did swim this last year, she did gymnastics. She'll continue gymnastics into the summer as well. And overall, she's had a really good year. She's definitely hit that developmental milestone of, going from kindergarten to first grade. I can see the growth in her, and I think she's doing a wonderful job. I did want to mention so we do Torchlight as a group subject. And again, I have reviews on Torchlight if you want to see that. But one of the things we do in Torchlight is read alouds. And the level we did Torchlight level 3 this past year. And that is definitely aimed more towards my 10-year-old, but she has really enjoyed the read alouds as well. So I want to pick out and share her favorite read alouds we've done this year, as well as when I do my 10-year-old, I'll share her favorite read alouds we did from Torchlight. So the first read aloud she really enjoyed was this Edison book, and I talk about this. I think she just really enjoyed the pictures because she's a very into details type of child. And it's very visually pretty, tells the story of a mouse, and by the end of it you realize that they're talking about the invention of the light bulb by Edison. But great story, she really enjoyed that. And then I was surprised she chose this as one of her favorites, because this is something I definitely don't think many people would recommend for a 6.5-year-old child. So this is How I Became a Ghost. It is a Trail of Tears story, and it's about a Native American family being relocated and the struggles with that. It definitely tackles some difficult subjects, like there's a part where they're walking on freezing snow and their skin sticks to the snow and you can see the bloody footprints. There's a part where a wolf attacks one of the members and kills them. And there's some Native American history in there as well. And I was really surprised, like, why did you like the book so much? And she told me, because it made her feel everything. And I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of people shy away from teaching difficult subjects or talking about difficult subjects with especially younger children because they don't think they have the capacity to deal with the emotions. I think there are age-appropriate ways to introduce subjects and talk about difficult things, absolutely. And we had conversations about these difficult parts, and it's okay to be sad and feel sad. I feel often we try to avoid that with our children, that we want them to live in this happy little bubble as long as they can, and I get that. But at the same time, that it's not realistic. One of the characters in the story was the age of my daughter, so there are children going through difficult situations, and I think my children need to be aware of that, and it definitely leads to, you know, more deeper conversations, and it's okay to feel sad and to feel everything. As like she said, there's moments of happiness and joy, but sadness and sorrow, and that's life. I think books give us this amazing ability to explore different worlds and emotions in a safe way, so we can start to, you know, seed through them and really understand what is going on, not only in history, but in our lives too, in a safe way that allows us to express all those different emotions. So she really liked this, and she wanted me to continue reading it every time we stopped. And I just think it was a really interesting choice that was one of her favorite read louds from this past year. So that is everything for my 6.5-year-old. Again, she had a wonderful year. I'm really happy with the progress she's made. I've seen her, you know, just continue on. And if you have any specific questions about RK first grade year or any of the curriculum, leave them down below. If not, thank you for watching.